How do we start looking at this? How do we start convincing, the members of the National Assembly that, okay, these are things that shouldn't be happening, and how do we guarantee that they do it? I mean, we've seen countries like Senegal where they completely scrapped the whole level of the National Assembly and made it unicameral. I know that Nigeria is definitely not going to go down that route with the way we are set up. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But I mean, how close to that can we even get?
I think that it will still come back to looking at what has happened over the last 3 years that we have campaigned for openness, and how if Nigerians persist at something, they will get results for it. And I think that if we really want to cut costs, if we need to improve our democracy with respect to our representation in Abuja, people need to engage their legislators. The campaigners for openness did a lot of engagement. Aside from all of the media scrutiny that went into the campaign, there were direct contacts with the leadership of the National Assembly. There were a lot of conversation that went on behind the scene to impress upon them on the need to do this. So Nigerians should take a cue. Your legislators should come to you at least once a quarter to have town hall meetings. If they are not doing that, why don't you organize one and summon them to it? You have traditional rulers who are powerful enough to call those guys. You have religious leaders who hold all sorts of events and they show up. Why don't you use all of that avenue to begin to engage them and raise questions in a way that impacts governance in Nigeria, so that they're not in Abuja in isolation, and then they're out of touch with what is happening in their constituency without input of the people.
The President of the Senate is an open advocate for the openness initiative and continues to say that he wants the National Assembly to be more open, especially their books. Are you convinced with him and his words? I mean, do you think his actions have matched his words so far?
2 years. 2 years from the day he made the promise to when it was fulfilled. So he has kept his words, but I will be very skeptical next time when he makes promises. I will try to factor in how long it will take for him to keep the promise, but also recognize some of the challenges he faced. He did say to us once during a meeting that he's just one amongst equal. Even though he's the president of the Senate, he cannot make decision on behalf of his colleagues without their consent. So it was a big challenge. You do remember that once he was sworn in, he constituted a committee to look into this issue. The report was not made public, but from my understanding, it was rejected by majority of members when they went into an executive session to debate it. They said no, do not make the budget open. So to a large extent, he then spent more time convincing his colleagues that this is the right thing to do. So it was challenging for him, but we still believe that he could have moved faster to keeping his promise.
On a final note now, just away from the National Assembly now, looking at the 2017 budget, how realistic do you think it is?
Well, things are stabilizing to a large extent. We're no longer bleeding as much as we did last year. Oil prices, we can fairly guess that it will be between $45 and $50 per barrel. So by our benchmark, we're basically covered with respect to FAC allocation that comes from oil. I think we need to do more with our internally generated revenue, FG collection, custom collection. We need to be clear about our monetary policy, which is also affecting imports and ability of customs to collect more revenue. But I also think that in funding the capital component of the budget, there has to be more communication. We have engaged the budget office. Most of this week we were in series of meetings with them, and they are they understand what the times requires of them. They need to communicate to Nigerians about the level of funding into the budget. One of the critical things that we have understood is that the fact that an item appears in the budget does not mean that money has been made available for that item. So it may not be funded eventually, because funding a line item in the budget depends on how much revenue we're able to collect. So at the moment, for them to overcome that whole assumption about why is this item reoccurring, they need to improve their communication ability. Tell us what you have funded, tell us what you have not funded, so that when we see it in the budget again, we understand that the previous year that item was not funded. That's the aspect I think that they need to improve on at the moment. But I think the budget will be, to a large extent, to be implemented.
Very quickly now, 30 seconds. Power.
So it's a bit challenging. I think that the government needs to review what we have done with our privatization and work out a new funding structure, because the private sector cannot shoulder the cost as it is right now. So they need to rethink how that sector is funded. Government is not putting much funding into it anymore.
Because the minister was quite vocal when the Prentice administration was sworn in 2015/2016 when he went into
But we
office.
expected that the private sector would drive investment in the sector.
So what is going wrong there with all of that? Because I mean, all of this.
I think that the truth is that the only way forward is that we must pay more. We must pay more for the power we consume, because nobody wants to put money into a loss-making venture. And we have seen, when you look at the books of the parts of power that has been privatized, they are all in debt. They are requiring bailout. So no foreign funding will go into that sector until we get our pricing right. So we need to rethink how we're pricing our power, and then we can then open up that sector. Once the pricing regime is right, we can open the sector for investment. Government cannot fund it alone. No matter how much we want to put into it, government cannot fund power.
All right, thank you very much for being here today. We will continue this discussion, of course, as the weeks and months unfold. Hopefully, by December, when the fiscal year will be over, Nigeria would have some things, hopefully, to smile about.
I hope so.
Thanks for being here today, Stanley.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll be talking entertainment right here on Rubbin Minds. Please stay with us.
Let's dance now, it is my turn. Just want